Imagine that you are neither a knight nor a peasant, but something in between: a medieval merchant, responsible for shepherding bolts of wool, barrels of salt, or crates of pepper from one town to another. The task sounds simple, but behind every item on a market stall lies a slow, careful journey, filled with more patience and planning than swashbuckling adventure. The merchant's world is defined by roads, Roman highways, centuries old and rutted, snake through valleys and over hills, connecting cities, villages, and ports. Most are little more than stony paths, sometimes mired in mud after rain, often so narrow that carts must give way to passing drovers or herds. The day begins before dawn. Goods are checked, weighed, and lashed tight to carts or pack animals, mules, horses, or oxen, depending on the route and the nature of the load. Merchants rarely travel alone. A small caravan forms, sometimes with relatives or partners, sometimes with hired guards if the roads are known for bandits. The group moves at a steady pace, slow, because a broken axle or lamed animal can mean costly delays. Bells hang from harnesses, both to announce your approach and to scare off wild animals in the woods. Progress is measured in leagues and patience. The countryside passes slowly, fields of rye and barley, orchards heavy with fruit in autumn, and forests that seem endless, their silence broken only by the sound of hooves or the calls of distant woodcutters. Sometimes the castle appears on a hilltop, both a landmark and a reminder of the tolls you must pay for safe passage. For a merchant, paperwork is as important as the goods themselves. Documents written in Latin or the local tongue prove that taxes have been paid, that goods are not stolen, that you are entitled to enter the next market. At each town's gate, the caravan is stopped. Guards examine the wagons, merchants compare the papers, and sometimes find an issue that can only be resolved with a bribe or a few friendly words. Nights are spent in simple inns, when fortune allows. A roofed hall, smoky from a central hearth, with straw mattresses and thick roughed blankets. More often, the caravan camps in a clearing, huddled around a sputtering fire, cooking a meal of dried beans or bread. Guards take turns keeping watch. The talk is of the road ahead, of prices at distant fairs, or the weather that could ruin a whole trip with one hard rain or early frost. Hazards are many but rarely dramatic. Wheels break, axles crack, or an animal falls lame. Repairs are made with what is at hand: cord, wood, patience. News comes from travelers met along the way. Which bridges are flooded, which lords are feuding, where grain is scarce or wool is in demand. Sometimes you must backtrack or take a detour through unfamiliar villages, always wary of strangers and always careful with coin. There are quiet moments too, waiting for a ferry at a river crossing. You watch barges drift by, loaded with timber or wine. In the gray of dawn, you listen for the bells of a distant monastery, their sound carrying over the fields. Evenings are spent mending clothes, counting coins, or simply staring into the fire, letting fatigue and the sameness of the journey settle over you. But how does a merchant protect his goods from thieves, bad weather, or unscrupulous officials? What happens when a caravan is caught in a border dispute, or when rival merchants compete for the same market? And what hidden systems kept this slow but steady engine of medieval trade running, year after uneventful year? The journey of a medieval merchant is, above all, a lesson in preparedness and patience. Every road presents a challenge, and centuries of quiet ingenuity are devoted to finding ways through the obstacles. Some natural, others man, line the route from workshop to market. Banditry is a constant threat, especially in the forested stretches between towns or in the wild borderlands where no lord's law holds sway. To guard against ambush, merchants travel in convoys, sometimes hiring armed men, sometimes relying on the mutual protection of the group. Weapons are simple short swords, heavy staves, or hunting bows, and the hope is that a show of force will be enough. Sometimes it isn't. Stories are told of midnight raids, goods spirited away under cover of darkness, or whole caravans vanishing after taking a wrong turn. Most, though, make it through, losses absorbed as the price of doing business. Weather is another adversary, and one as unpredictable as any human. Spring floods can sweep away a bridge, while autumn rains turn roads to rivers of mud. In winter, deep snow and freezing winds halt travel for weeks at a time. Merchants learn to read the clouds, to judge the season, and to plan their departures with care. Extra provisions are packed, and alternate routes are mapped. Still, delays are common, and a shrewd merchant knows that sometimes waiting is wiser than pressing on. Crossing borders between regions, duchies, or kingdoms requires patience and paperwork. Tolls and tariffs are an expected expense, and some towns grow rich on the taxes levied at their gates. Documents are produced and stamped, and negotiations are sometimes drawn out, as officials seek to extract a little more from each passing load. Merchants develop networks of contacts: innkeepers, local traders, minor officials who can smooth the process with a discreet word or the right coin. Letters of credit and safe conduct passes become more common as trade increases, an early innovation that makes cross-country journeys more feasible and less risky. Rival merchants present their own challenges. Competition is keen, especially in luxury goods, silks, spices, glassware, and fine cloth. In some towns, local guilds set rules for who may sell, when, and at what price. Foreigners must often wait for the main market day or pay extra fees to set up their stalls. Cartels sometimes form, merchants banding together to fix prices or block outsiders. Occasionally, feuds break out, marked by sabotage, rumor spreading, or even outright violence. Most of the time, though, merchants use quieter tactics, undercutting rivals, forming alliances, or investing in new routes and products to stay ahead. Innovation is slow, but steady. Merchant families develop codes and ciphers to keep correspondence secret. Simple accounting ledgers are replaced by double-entry bookkeeping, imported from Italy, allowing for better planning and fewer costly mistakes. Ships and wagons are improved, with larger holds and sturdier wheels. The spread of new roads, inns, and bridges often built by merchant-funded guilds eases travel bit by bit. Yet for all the slow progress, the pace of trade remains deliberate. Merchants are rarely in a rush. Better to arrive late with all goods intact than lose everything to haste or carelessness. They cultivate relationships with local officials, priests, and innkeepers, knowing that a favor returned can mean help in a crisis. Some merchants settle in foreign towns, opening offices and hiring local agents, a web of trust that connects distant cities and markets. Daily life is still defined by the road, the long hours, the routine checks of goods and animals, the shared meals, the wary glance at the horizon. Most journeys are uneventful, marked not by adventure but by repetition. The same fields, the same towns, the same concerns over weather and safety. But what happens when a journey goes wrong, when a shipment is lost, a deal collapses, or a merchant runs afoul of powerful local interests? How do merchants recover from disaster, and what becomes of those who fail to adapt to the slow, grinding changes of their world? In the world of medieval trade, no journey is ever truly guaranteed. For every caravan that arrives safely with its goods and its profits, another returns home empty-handed or doesn't return at all. Disasters are inevitable, whether from bandits, storms, border disputes, or the countless small failures of wagons, animals, or agreements. When a shipment is lost, the response is seldom dramatic, but rather methodical. Merchants count their losses, file what claims they can, and notify partners by letter or word of mouth. There is no insurance in the modern sense, but risk is shared among business partners, between merchant families, and sometimes even across the whole towns. A ruined deal or lost cargo means hardship for many, not just one. But the community understands that such setbacks are the price of the wider prosperity that trade brings. Recovery is slow and based on the careful cultivation of relationships and reputation. A merchant who defaults on debts or cheats a partner finds doors closing quickly, but one who takes a loss honorably, who makes what restitution they can, is often given another chance. Loans are renegotiated, partners extend credit, guilds offer small grants or supplies. Sometimes, a failed merchant takes work as an agent for others, learning new routes or skills before striking out again on their own. Adaptation is key. Trade routes change as political borders shift, wars flare, or new markets emerge. A merchant who once dealt in English wool may find more profit in Flemish cloth, or switch from salt to spices as demand grows. Innovation continues quietly. Better wagons, improved ledgers, new forms of correspondence, and safe. Some merchants even move into banking, lending money to other traders or to local lords, gradually shaping the earliest outlines of modern finance. The merchant's life is one of constant calculation and compromise, but also of subtle resilience. Failures are frequent, but ruin is rare. Most learn to diversify their risks and spread their investments. Families send sons and daughters into other trades, marry into new regions, or invest profits in land and property. Over time, the web of connections thickens, and the reach of trade extends further north into Scandinavia, south into Italy and Spain, east along the rivers to Russia and beyond. The cities and towns themselves grow and change as a result. Markets expand, new quarters are built, and roads are repaired or widened. The slow, steady march of the merchant's caravan shapes the very fabric of medieval life, bringing not just goods but news, ideas, and even new customs from distant lands. What begins as a boring and repetitive routine, the loading, the bargaining, the cautious journey, becomes over centuries the quiet engine of social and economic change. Few merchants leave grand monuments or heroic tales. Their lives are recorded in ledgers, in faded contracts, or in the family names that still mark the city streets. Yet their endurance through mishaps, monotony, and the slow tides of history creates a legacy as lasting as any knight's castle or bishop's cathedral. So as you settle into rest, picture the last glimmer of lantern light over a sleepy caravan, the hush of horses munching fodder, and the quiet murmur of traders counting their coins and planning the next day's road. In their steady persistence is a lesson that history is made not only in moments of glory, but also in the long, careful journeys that knit the world together, one boring mile at a time.